Hi, I'm Kevin Hall, President and CEO of your Greater Anna Chamber of Commerce. With me is Nathan Bryan. What do you want to say for you? Former City Council member or just Nathan Bryan?
You can say former City Council member Nathan Bryan.
Nathan Bryan, former Anna City Council member. And we're here to educate on the bond that's up for election. So the Chamber right now does not endorse any candidates nor any bonds, but we want to educate the community and the city. We just want to connect with them and really just educate the public and let you know the bonds are up for election, and the election starts April the 19th for early voting, and May 1st is the day of official voting. Is that right?
Correct.
Is the last day to vote is May the 1st. So Nathan, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Just a few questions on the bonds so we understand. So what is a bond in general? What does that mean?
Well, basically a bond is where a government entity, a town, a city, the county, they want to either do capital improvements or they want to do community improvements. And to do that, they can either pull from the general fund or they can do a bond. And a bond is effectively a loan, and that loan is something that's done through the state. Now you can do the bond as a municipal bond without citizens' input, depending on the credit rating, or you can have your citizens' input. And general citizen input is a good thing, I think, to have when it comes to a bond.
And so the input is done by voting.
By voting, correct.
Now I know we call it a bond, but there's actually three different propositions.
Correct.
So do you vote on three individually, or do you do a bulk? How does that work?
So when you break the bond down into three separate parts, you're going to vote on each individual part, and each part passes individually. So they become effectively part of a bond package, but the package can stand alone in individual pieces. So say two parts pass or one part passes, the other two don't. That one part that passes is effectively a bond. The city has the money at this point that they can actually do whatever that project is. The other two bonds have effectively been nullified for 3 years. So from the point that they failed, it's 3 more years before any kind of improvement in that city or township can be done that has to do with something that is in any way affected by that bond. So say for instance, the fire station doesn't pass and we need to do improvements to our existing fire station or buy new equipment. We can't do that for 3 years. So we have to think about, when we craft these bonds and get these bonds prepared, whether or not that's something that the citizens really support and if it'll pass.
Okay, that's good to know. So tell us real quick, what is Proposition A? I know it's related to public safety, so what does that mean?
So Proposition A is a public safety bond that's going to be a bond package for basically completing a fire station that we have land for. We'll build that fire station and then we'll equip the fire station, and we'll have the funds to actually put all the apparatus that we need, all the safety equipment that we need, and have a new fire truck with a ladder, safety amenities for each one of the firemen that's able to be inside there, safe rooms for those firemen so they can decompress after there's treating a fire. Just a very modernized, up-to-date, and also it's kind of a twofold situation, because we'll be able to have a fire station on the other side of town, so that we'll be able to more quickly respond to accidents on 75 and be able to respond to anything that happens on the west side of town much quicker.
Okay, so this is on western side of Atlanta. Okay, very nice. Well, Proposition B, the community library.
Okay, so Proposition B, and this is one that I've personally been looking forward to for quite a few years. Growing up in Richardson, we had a large public library, and I always thought of myself as being somebody that frequented the library, and I liked it. So it was nice to have one of those amenities. And when we came to Anna, there was a library that was being constructed inside the new City Hall in Melissa, but the only other library close by was Van Alstyne, and I thought, if I ever get a chance and there's a place for us to put a library, I want to be part of that. And so now we have that opportunity to build a library. It's actually, the city is looking at it as a twofold purpose. We want a community center and a library. So community center, people ask, well, what's a community center? Well, it's a lot of different things. Community center can be a place to where you can hold events, you can hold meetings, you can have the scouts meet there, you could have yoga classes there, you can have senior groups that come in and have bingo, or we could also hold annual events, say like a science fair, or even have things like even an anime conference, or a Comic-Con type situation where people have comic books and come in and display and can sell and trade, or maybe a sci-fi convention or something that people will be drawn to the area and can utilize. And it's also a library. So, there's always that potential for people to have access to media and books and a quiet place that they can actually go and relax and, just enjoy being in Anna.
So it sounds more like a learning center.
Exactly.
I'm sure there'll be computers as well for those, and not everyone has technology. We found that out last year when everyone was working from home and doing school from home. There's a place where people can go and use these computers at no cost, which is great, especially the ones that are looking for employment, because the chamber does like to have businesses here, and businesses need employees, and so it's part of that process. Wonderful.
You also think of it too. We just had the big ice storm that came through, and we somewhat weren't prepared. Many communities really weren't prepared. If there was a place that we could have here in town that for emergency situations like that in the future, that the city could go and it'd be a centralized point, and either stage an area that we can take help to people that are in need and are not able to get out, or once people are able to get out, say if there's a drought or the water lines break or we have some issue like that, people can come in and get water from there. So it serves the community in multi different ways.
Very nice. What about Proposition C, the parks, trails, recreation, and sports?
So Proposition C is something that's we've been looking at for a long time, actually. This is something that's been a focal point for the council for many years. Our former planning and zoning director was one of his passions, and it was something that we've all had in the back of our mind thinking about going forward. So now that we've looked at it and we've looked at what other communities, there are growing communities that are reaching that 25,000+ threshold, they all have some sort of a park system that has either a sports complex outdoor or a recreation center indoor, and interconnecting trails. And now our trails are almost interconnecting, but not quite. And so we want this money to be that particular piece of the puzzle, to fully integrate all of our park systems, to have either the potential of doing a large outdoor complex that's accessible to everybody in the city, or a recreation center and improvements to the existing outdoor complexes that we have.
So let's say these 3 bonds pass. Does this mean that everything is already set in stone as far as what's going to happen, or are there more steps in order to determine what should be done with the funds?
Exactly. So what will happen is, what we'll do is if the bonds pass, then each one of those individual bonds, we'll put out basically an RFP to find out who would be willing to want to invest in the design of each one of the projects, and then possibly the construction of the project. We would also have several different facets of, is it something that's going to be in a manner of one design or another that's most cost effective, to have more money left over for other projects that have to do with that particular, say it's the parks or say it's the library. So yeah, it takes time. It's not instantaneous. One of the nice things about that is that when the bond was initially put together and it was finally decided upon, we were looking at about $98 a year for each household in Anna as far as their taxes. And that was based off an estimate of growth that we've now surpassed in 6 months. So at this point, the way the growth models are projecting, you're looking at less than $50 in your taxes a year, and that's broken down by month. So you're basically a little over $4, just shy of $5 every month. I mean, that's less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So.
Okay. Again, you had mentioned that if the bonds pass, then there's more steps. If they don't pass, it's at 3 years minimum before they can come up for election again. And
correct.
We know how quick things change in 3 years, and construction, everything else changes, and costs change in 3 years.
Costs go up significantly, especially on building materials. Wood, when it comes to having to do with a park or building a library facility or community center. Anything that has to do with lumber, the costs have been significantly going up in the state of Texas because we've had several natural disasters in the last several years. And it's something that, each month that you wait, there's a significant increase. And each year that you wait, it's an even more significant increase. So the sooner you can lock a project in and then get it to the point of it's ready to actually build, then you can lock in those costs. There may be some cost overruns, but if you can lock in the cost at an early point, keep that cost overall down, then if anything happens during the building process, you're able to absorb that. Say there's some sort of an issue that that product is just no longer available, or You're not able to do something because the laws have changed with safety or, with something inside the building construction of that particular entity, whatever it is, then you have the ability to stop and back up and redesign that and meet those standard changes and still absorb the cost. So the sooner you can get those projects basically on paper and signed off, the better off you are.
What if there's money left over? Let's say we have a bond and there's money, even if it's $1 or $1 million, if there's money left over after the bond is complete and the project's complete, where does that money go, or how do we utilize that leftover income?
So if there's money left over for any one of these projects, it has to go to that particular project, or if it cannot be spent in that project, say it's completed and there's X amount of time that the library or the park system money is sitting idle, it's supposed to be paid back to the bond, because we're basically paying back a loan. So that money can be put back to that bond and keep paying on it. So.
Okay, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So again, let's go over. So if we vote, because I get confused myself, voting for proposition means yes.
Yes.
Voting no or for proposition means you're voting no, not to. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we vote for proposition A, that's public safety.
For.
Proposition B, community library.
Mm-hmm.
And proposition C is parks, trails, recreation, and sports.
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Again, Nathan and Bryan is with, it's a former City of Anna City Council member and your Greater Anna Chamber President and CEO. Today was to educate you on your options and your choices. April the 19th is early voting through May the 1st, which is the day of the official last day to vote. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.